What is the niche classification? What are trademark classes? I'm Andrei Mincov, the founder of Trademark Factory, and in this video I'm going to go over the 11th edition of the niche classification current as of 2019.
Get it trademarked with Trademark Factory.
This is the first in a series of videos I'm shooting about trademark classes. In this video, we'll provide an overview of the entire system and quickly go through all classes. Consider it an introduction to the niche classification. And by the way, it's pronounced niche, not nice, right? It's about the French town, not about, oh, how nice. Okay, I will be also shooting videos about several specific classes that are most commonly used by brand owners. And I will be also shooting videos about specific industries to see which classes are relevant to them. I read all and respond to most comments personally. So if you want me to shoot a video about a particular trademark class or a video about the classes commonly used to trademark brands in a particular industry, let me know in the comment below. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet. This way you'll know when the next video comes out. Alright, let's talk about the niche classification. It first came to be in 1957 when a bunch of countries realized that they wanted to standardize the way trademark offices around the world classified goods and services in respect of which brand owners trademarked their brands. The first edition of the niche classification entered into force in April of 1961. Now you see, trademarks don't give you an absolute monopoly over your name, logo, or tagline. Trademarks give you a monopoly over the mental link between your name, logo, or tagline and specific products and services that you offer to the market under your name, logo, or tagline. Now, for example, Apple doesn't own the word Apple by itself. They own the word Apple in connection with phones, watches, software, and a bunch of other products and services. Now, to put things into perspective, in 1961, the year when niche classification entered into force, we didn't have the internet, email, personal computers, video games, or even pocket calculators. Not only did the vast majority of today's most successful companies not exist in 1961, the people who founded these companies weren't even born in 1961. Right? You'll understand why this is important in a moment when I take you through the classes of the niche classification. Initially, there were only 34 classes for physical products only, classes 1 to class 34. And then they added 11 more classes for services, classes 35 to 45. Now the classification is constantly being revised by adding and removing products and services and putting them inside one of these 45 classes. Now, as new products and services get invented, there's this constant challenge of figuring out where is this supposed to go, which class? And you will notice how some classes remained very small and self-contained, while some others grew to cover a massive number of goods and services. Currently, the most detailed level of the classification is the alphabetical list, which contains around 10,000 indications of goods and 1,000 indications of services. Now, I'm not going to go through all these now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the 45 classes to give you a general idea of what they are. I might throw a comment or two here and there, but as I mentioned at the outset, this is just an introduction. If you want me to go in detail about a particular class, post your comment below and we'll take it from there. All right, are you ready? Let's do this. Class 1. Chemicals for use in industry, science, and photography, as well as in agriculture, horticulture, and forestry. Unprocessed, artificial, resins, unprocessed plastics, fire extinguishing and fire prevention compositions, tempering and soldering preparations, substances for tanning animal skins and hides, adhesives for use in industry, putties and other paste fillers, compost, manures, fertilizers, biological preparations for use in industry and science. So it's a pretty big class that covers a bunch of chemical stuff, right? And again, they keep adding things to it. Class 2, paints, varnishes, lacquers, preservatives against rust and against deterioration of wood, colorants, dyes, inks for printing, marking, and engraving, raw natural resins, metals in foil and powder form for use in painting, decorating, printing, and art. So again, you start to notice that they're carving out some parts of goods that would have otherwise been in a different class, but they want to make sure that they fall under this specific class. Again, you will notice in the future videos what they do to make sure that there is no overlap. Class 3, non-medicated cosmetics and toiletry preparations, non-medicated dentifrices, I hope I'm saying it right, perfumery, essential oils, bleaching preparations and other substances for laundry use, cleaning, polishing, scouring, and abrasive preparations. Class 4, industrial oils and greases, wax, lubricants, dust-absorbing, wetting and binding compositions, fuels and illuminants, candles and wicks for lighting. Class 5, pharmaceuticals, that's a big class, medical and veterinary preparations, sanitary preparations for medical purposes, dietetic food and substances adapted for medical or veterinary use, food for babies, dietary supplements for human beings and animals, plasters, materials for dressings, material for stopping teeth, dental wax, disinfectants, preparations for destroying vermin, fungicides, herbicides. Class 6, common metals and their alloys, ores, metal materials for building and construction, transportable buildings of metal, non-electric cables and wires of common metal, small items of metal hardware, metal containers for storage of transport, safes. See, they keep adding things because they're thinking, okay, we only have so many classes. There's only 34 classes for goods, and they have to fit one of these 34. So when somebody comes up with the idea, well, we sell metal containers for storage and transport, where does that go? And they well, let's put it in class 6, right? So it's very interesting to see this development. The system is designed to make things easy and simple and least confusing, but really, because it just keeps getting edited and because all they're trying to do is get rid of the overlap, sometimes they're not really accomplishing that purpose. Class 7, machines, machine tools, powered operated tools, motors and engines, except for land vehicles, right? So land vehicles would go somewhere else. Machine coupling and transmission components, except for land vehicles. Again, agricultural implements other than hand-operated hand tools, incubators for eggs, automatic vending machines. When they invented the first vending machine, they were like, where does this go? Well, let's put it in class 7. Now, class 8, hand tools and implements, hand-operated cutlery, sidearms, except firearms, razors. Class 9, scientific, research, navigation, surveying, photographic, cinematographic, audiovisual, optical, weighting, measuring, signaling, detecting, testing, inspecting, life-saving, and teaching apparatus and instruments. Apparatus and instruments for conducting, switching, transforming, accumulating, regulating, or controlling the distribution and use of electricity. apparatus and instruments for recording, transmitting, reproducing, or producing sound, images, or data, recorded and downloadable media. That's why this class is important, because pretty much your podcasts, your downloadable videos go in class 9. Let's keep going. Computer software. All software which you sell as a product, that's class 9. Software as a service would be a different class, but software as a product is class 9. So computer software, blank digital or analog recording and storage media, mechanisms for coin-operated apparatus, cash registers, calculating devices, computers and computer peripheral devices, diving suits. What do diving suits have anything to do with anything else in this class? Well, they decided that would go here. So diving suits, divers masks, earplugs for divers, nose clips for divers and swimmers, gloves for divers, breathing apparatus for underwater swimming, fire extinguishing apparatus, right? So here's the problem with this. So let's say you've got a brand for software title, right? You go and trademark it in class 9, and then somebody else wants to do gloves for divers, and they want to call them the same way. So in theory, they would also go in class 9. So when the trademark examiner does the search, they'll see, oh, that's the same name and same class. And in many cases, they'd be thrown off by that and say that the marks are confusing, even though there's really nothing similar between software and gloves for divers, but for whatever reason, they decided to put them in the same class. Let's keep going. Class 10, surgical, medical, dental, and veterinary apparatus and instruments, artificial limbs, eyes and teeth, orthopedic articles. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. I'm assuming it's suture materials, therapeutic and assistive devices adapted for the disabled, massage apparatus, devices, and articles for nursing infants, sexual activity apparatus, devices, and articles. Well, that's a fun one. Class 11, apparatus and installations for lighting, heating, cooling, steam generating, cooking, drying, ventilating, water supply, and sanitary purposes. Class 12, vehicles, apparatus for locomotion by land, air, or water. Locomotion, right? Class 13, firearms, ammunition, and projectiles, explosives, fireworks. Class 14, precious metals and their alloys, jewelry, precious and semi-precious stones, horological and chronometric instruments. So watches, right? So they wanted to put watches in the same class with precious metals and jewelry. Okay. Class 15, musical instruments, music stands, and stands for musical instruments, and conductors' batons. Class 16, paper and cardboard, printed matter, bookbinding material, photographs, stationery, and office requisites, except furniture. Adhesive for stationery or household purposes, drawing materials and materials for artists, paintbrushes, instructional and teaching materials. That's why class 16 is so widely used, because books, instructional materials, they all go in class 16. Plastic sheets, films and bags for wrapping and packaging, printers type, printing blocks. Class 17, unprocessed and semi-processed rubber, gutta percha, gum, asbestos, mica, and substitutes for all these materials. Plastics and resins in extruded form for use in manufacture, packing, stopping, and insulating materials, flexible pipes, tubes, and hoses, not of metal, right? So because pipes, tubes, and hoses of metal belong to a different class. Class 18, leather and imitations of leather, animal skins and hides, luggage and carrying bags, umbrellas and parasols, walking sticks, whips, harness and saddlery, collars, leashes, and clothing for animals. So you see what they're doing is they're grouping them not just for what things are, but also what they're made out of. And sometimes, for example, keychains, right? They don't let you just register keychains in one class because there is no class specifically for keychains. And so they go with keychains made of leather, class 18, keychains made of metal, some other class, keychains made of this, keychains made of that. And they would make you put them into different classes. And in most countries, when you file your trademark in multiple classes, guess what happens? You have to pay the government fees for multiple classes. So sometimes it becomes really expensive to trademark some really banal things because they can be made from different materials. Well, let's keep going. Class 19, materials not of metal for building and construction. Rigid pipes, not of metal, for building. Asphalt, pitch, tar, and bitumen. Transportable buildings, not of metal. Monuments, not of metal. Right? Again, they carve out metal because metal belongs to a different class. Class 20, furniture, mirrors, picture frames, containers, not of metal, for storage and transport. Unworked or semi-worked bone, horn, whalebone, or mother of pearl, shells, meerschaum, yellow amber. Class 21, household or kitchen utensils and containers, cookware and tableware except forks, knives, and spoons, combs and sponges, brushes except paintbrushes, brush making materials, articles for cleaning purposes, unworked or semi-worked glass except building glass, glassware, porcelain, and earthenware. Class 22, we're almost halfway there. Ropes and string, nets, tents, and tarpaulins, awnings of textile or synthetic materials, sails, sacks for the transport and storage of materials in bulk, padding, cushioning, and stuffing materials except of paper, cardboard, rubber, or plastics, raw, fibrous, textile materials, and substitutes thereof. Class 23, that's probably the shortest class there is. Yarns and threads for textile use. Class 24, textiles and substitutes for textiles, household linen, curtains of textile or plastic. Now, class 25 is massive, but the header is very short. Clothing, footwear, headwear. Class 26, lace, braid, and embroidery, and haberdashery, ribbons and bows, buttons, hooks and eyes, pins and needles, artificial flowers, hair decorations, false hair. Class 27, carpets, rugs, mats and matting, linoleum, and other materials for covering existing floors. Wall hangings, not of textile. The funny thing here is that linoleum used to be a trademark by itself, right? It was the name of a brand, and then it became generic, and now it even made it into the classification as a generic word. That's fascinating. Class 28, games, toys, and playthings, video game apparatus, gymnastic and sporting articles, decorations for Christmas trees, right? So again, when they thought, okay, where do we put decorations for Christmas trees? And they decided to put them in the same class as toys. Class 29, meat, fish, poultry and game, meat extracts, preserved, frozen, dried, and cooked fruits and vegetables, jellies, jams, compotes, eggs, milk, cheese, butter, yogurt, and other milk products, oils and fats for food. Class 30, used a lot for the food industry, coffee, tea, cocoa, and artificial coffee, rice, pasta, and noodles, tapioca and sago, flour and preparations made from cereals, bread, pastries and confectionery, ice cream, sorbets and other edible ices, sugar, honey, treacle, yeast, baking powder, salt, seasonings, spices, preserved herbs, vinegar, sauces, and other condiments, ice, frozen water. Well, thanks for telling. Class 31, raw and unprocessed agricultural, aquacultural, horticultural, and forestry products, raw and unprocessed grains and seeds, fresh fruits and vegetables, fresh herbs, natural plants and flowers, bulbs, seeding and seeds for planting, live animals, foodstuffs and beverages for animals, malt. Class 32, beers, non-alcoholic beverages, mineral and aerated waters, fruit beverages and fruit juices, syrups, and other non-alcoholic preparations for making beverages. In Class 33, alcoholic beverages except beers, alcoholic preparations for making beverages. So in theory, if you have beer and some other harder liquor, even wine, you would have to file that trademark in 2 classes, 32 and 33. Class 34, tobacco and tobacco substitutes, cigarettes and cigars, electronic cigarettes, and oral vaporizers for smokers, smokers' articles, matches. Whew, that was 34 classes of goods. And now the classes for services, that's classes 35 to 45. Class 35, advertising, business management, business administration, and office functions. Actually, the first video that I'm going to publish for a specific class is going to cover class 35 because, as you'll see, the header can be very short, but the scope of what the class covers could be massive. Okay, class 36, insurance, financial affairs, monetary affairs, real estate affairs. Class 37, building construction, repair, installation services. Class 38, telecommunications. Class 39, transport, packaging and storage of goods, travel arrangement. Now remember, there were several classes that dealt with vehicles and things that actually move. So those were for products. Those were for the actual vehicles. Class 39 is the service of transportation, of moving people and goods from point A to point B. Class 40, treatment of materials. Class 41, education, providing of training, entertainment, sporting and cultural activities. Class 42, scientific and technological services and research and design relating thereto. Industrial analysis and industrial research services, design and development of computer hardware and software. So remember, I mentioned software as a service. That's class 42. Class 43, services for providing food and drink, temporary accommodation. Class 44, medical services, veterinary services, hygienic and beauty care for human beings or animals, agriculture, horticulture, and forestry services. In class 45, legal services, security services for the physical protection of tangible property and individuals, personal and social services rendered by others to meet the needs of individuals. So class 45 is where Trademark Factory brand is registered because that's what we offer. We offer the service of helping you protect your brand to make sure you've got the legal tool to go against anybody else who's dumb enough to try to imitate your brand that you've trademarked. And so, and there you have it. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Until then, I will see you in the next video.